We're ready.
So, Guillain-Barré. So, acute inflammatory polyradio with neuropathy. Sounds weird. Don't worry about that. It's a big word. What you need to understand is that it affects the axons and the myelin of the peripheral nervous system, and it is going to cause ascending paralysis. So it's going, best way that you want to think about it is ground to brain, because myasthenia gravis goes the other way, it goes mind to ground, and they have different ways of paralysis. So with these patients, you're going to see tingling, weakness, tachycardia.
Hold on. If everybody would please respect their classmates, all I hear is chatter, even though he's right behind me, I just hear chatter everywhere. Thank you.
Alrighty, so difficulty breathing, trouble speaking, chewing, swallowing, just basically it's going to start at the feet. They're going to notice tingling in their legs, they're going to have muscle weakness. As it progresses, one of the biggest concerns you're going to have is it can cause the diaphragm to go numb, and they're going to have trouble breathing. You need to be prepared to intubate, you need to be prepared for mechanical ventilation. You may need to suction these patients. They're normally going to need help with all of their ADLs. This does reverse though. It is not a permanent disease, and it is going to reverse in the way that it ascended. So if the last thing in the body to go numb is the diaphragm and the upper extremities, that's going to be the first thing that you see come back. Now your treatment for this is you're going to test the spinal fluid. You're going to be looking for protein in the spinal fluid. But your treatments are going to be plasmapheresis, which the biggest things you need to understand with that is you need to weigh them before and after. Plasmapheresis is kind of like dialysis. You're taking the blood out of the body, getting all the antibodies out of the plasma, and then putting it back in. Also with that, you need to understand how to take care of a shunt. You need to have 2 bulldog clamps to clamp off either side if something goes wrong, if they have an allergic reaction to something. You need to make sure that you are palpating for thrill and listening for through. Going further from that is IVIG, which is an immunoglobulin, and remember with that, that it is a biological product and they can have anaphylaxis. So you need to have something to reverse it. You need to be able to maintain airway. You may have to intubate. Just your basic precautions with anaphylaxis. Also, just know that normally Guillain-Barré is going to come from some sort of viral infection. Your big ones are going to be like Epstein-Barr, Epstein-Barr, mononucleosis, uncooked meats, stuff like that. Just basically an infection has gotten into the spinal system. And let me make sure that's everything I have. Oh yeah, and just going back to the whole shunt thing with plasmapheresis. If you don't hear thrill or bruit, or you don't feel thrill or hear bruit, that is most likely a sign of a clot in that shunt. So that's what I got for that.
Good. Wow. He did a really good job, guys. So see, y'all ought to be paying attention. Because if he says something I don't have to re-say, that you get tested on, you know, that's the problem part. If you weren't listening. Okay? All right, so y'all realize that we're in autoimmune type disorders right now. That we talked about that earlier, how the body's fighting itself, okay? He pointed out the fact that what's going on here is that the body is fighting and causing a problem with uncovering nerves. The myelin sheath that covers the nerves is what's being destroyed. Y'all got that? So if you have nerves that are being uncovered, then they don't make the right connections anymore, and they can't do what they were intended to do. So therefore, as he pointed out, some of the first symptoms, you know, people start to have when those nerves are uncovered, then they start having that ascending paralysis. And he did an excellent job of explaining how that goes up and how it comes back down when it heals, right? So everybody's on the same page with that. He also mentioned that what could contribute to a person getting Guillain-Barré could be some sort of virus or something that happened to them, you know, a few weeks or whatever prior to them coming down with these symptoms and all this starting to happen. And you know how I mentioned to you earlier about type 1 diabetes and how they come into the hospital a lot of times, have had a virus a few weeks before, and then they end up coming in and their beta cells are messed up. Now they don't make insulin anymore. You know, yes.
I just wanted to add one last thing. Also, we talked about the aspiration precautions on these patients. They are not the same as like a tube feeding. We're not used to tube feeding being 30 degrees. You want to sit them all the way up to about a 45 degree because of the decreased muscle tone. You want to get them a little higher because they're more at risk for aspiration than your standard dysphagia patients because they have complete paralysis.
Okay, that's good. Good note, very good. Okay, so back to the viral kind of thing that might have contributed to this autoimmune disorder where the body's fighting itself. Okay, some that y'all mentioned, like you put the Campylobacter, did you got that up there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Campylobacter.
Bacteria, yeah, it's hard to say.
Comes
Okay.
from uncooked
Do you
meats.
know where that comes from?
Uncooked meats.
There you go. It comes from uncooked, especially poultry, I think. Chicken, maybe. Okay, and the cytomegalovirus, which is really a herpes virus. And then you have Epstein-Barr, which is mono, right? Mononucleosis. And then, of course, flus and stuff like that, walking pneumonias and what have you. But anyway, that's some of the things, and HIV maybe even could be something that would contribute to having Gillian Barré. Just a side note, okay? All right, next thing, he mentioned, very important, always important, is airway management, okay? That's your priority, right? He also made mention of elevating the head of the bed 45 degrees, which is something I would have said too. Okay. These folks, with any other nerve issues, they have signs and symptoms. You know, the tingling, the weakness. Talked about the ascending paralysis and so forth. He mentioned about the difficulty swallowing, and then of course you have a lot of these folks, they end up getting on tube feedings and as a precaution. They also get put on ventilators, as a precaution, so that they just don't stop breathing. What does that put a person at risk for? Just out of curiosity, if you've got a person who is on bed rest and they're
blood clots.
That's right. What else might they have? That's right. Pressure ulcers. And you know when we talked about earlier about our concept and we talked about tissue integrity, this is exactly what we're talking about. You can have all kinds of issues from all kinds of things. All right? So therefore, pressure ulcers, tissue integrity, that's a big issue with people who are laying in the bed. The blood clots, all those kinds of issues. He also mentioned the fact that sometimes they will do a test to check to see if a person has what in the spinal fluid? Protein. What does that indicate if a person has protein in the spinal fluid? Okay. It has to do with those nerves. You know what I'm saying? Being uncovered. So what you have here is there's some inflammation. What you got?
Inflammation in the nerve, right?
That's right, of the nerve roots. That is correct. Okay. And so that means that you're going to have some protein in the spinal fluid. But does that mean that you're going to have an infection in the spinal fluid? Y'all remember what I told you? You can have
Inflammation without infection.
There you go. That's why I told you all that stuff. Not just because I wanted to, it's because you need to know, right? Is that you can have that inflammation without having an infection. But if you had an infection, you'd have some inflammation. Okay? All right. So he mentioned some things to do for that. And it was you mentioned plasmapheresis, where you could take out a lot of those antibodies, right?
You take the blood out of the body, spin it, forces the antibodies out of it into a collection system, and then you recirculate them to the body.
Yeah, give the cells back to take off that plasma stuff, right? And then you mentioned the IVIG. Okay, and what does the IVIG do? Just,
It's an immunoglobulin, so it basically stops the antibodies from actually attacking the nerve system any worse.
well, and also it can give them some more healthy antibodies.
Okay.
Okay, giving it back some healthy ones. You know, not the bad ones, but the healthy ones. Okay. All right. I don't know of anything else that you need to know about that we haven't discussed already. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
So if they have the protein insoluble, that kind of like confirms that they have the Guillain-Barré? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're
Well, it's a test that they use as an indicator
saying? Okay.
that they have it.
Okay.
I'm not sure that they'd say it proves
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
but they suspect it at that point. Okay? They gonna have other things that goes along with that to confirm.
Yeah.
Okay. They have nerve conduction studies and things like that they'll do in addition to all of that, not just that one thing. But you will see that in Guillain-Barré. Okay? Because of the inflammatory process. Okay, let's talk about myasthenia gravis.
All right. Myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disease characterized by muscle weakness. The patient will have a history of ptosis, diplopia, dysphagia, and respiratory difficulties. They will also have voice and weakness and motor manifestations such as muscle weakness, thymus gland tumor. They'll have sensory manifestations such as muscle aches, paralysis, and decreased sense of smell and taste. They diagnose it through an electromyography, and they use symptom testing to determine if there's increasing weakness, will be a cholinergic crisis, which will be too much cholinesterase inhibitor drugs, or myasthenic crisis, which is too little. The generic name for the Coleman test is androconium chloride. The causes are cardiac dysrhythmias, and arrest. Have atropine sulfate ready, the antidote. Have O2 and suction available at the bedside. Priority is maintaining airway. People have been elevated 30 to 60 minutes after eating. Surgery to help treat this is a thymectomy, and you want to avoid heat, crowds, overeating, emotional extremes, and erratic sleep habits. The medication to treat it too is pyridostigmine. I butchered that word.
Pyridostigmine bromide.
Alright, okay. Want to make sure you instruct the patient to eat 45 minutes to an hour after taking the medication to avoid aspiration.
Okay. All right, guys. Y'all may not have been able to write all that down, but that's why it's up there on the board. Okay? Because they covered a lot of information that you're gonna just need to know. All right? So let's talk about that for a minute. Myasthenia gravis, where Guillain-Barré was, the nerves were involved. The myelin sheath was destroyed, so it uncovered nerves, which caused a problem. But what's actually happening with myasthenia gravis? What's that autoimmune issue there? What's going on there? Has to do with muscles, okay? Where you've got nerve involvement here. With Guillain-Barré, you need to think muscle involvement with myasthenia gravis, okay? And basically what happens here is you have what we call acetylcholine, right? At the myoneural junction of the nerve to the muscle that makes it do what it does. Makes the muscle do its job, okay? And the body attacks that acetylcholine. So if that acetylcholine is not there, okay, then those muscles can't work like they should. Does that make sense, sort of? Okay, good. All right, and then they mention the fact that sometimes people have thymus tumor, or the big thing there is that there are antibodies that are produced in the thymus gland. And if they remove that thymus gland, then that helps remove, where those acetylcholine antibodies are made. Let me think of what else I want to say about that, but I think we pretty well kind of covered the pathophysiology as far as that's concerned. But they mentioned the signs and symptoms that people would have as a result of the muscles not working like they should. And you talked about the double vision, I think, the drooping eyelids. Y'all talked about that. There's weakness in the face muscles and all, and they may not speak as clearly. They may have a problem with their voice being impaired, and just generalized weakness all over. So they'll have a progressive kind of muscle weakness in this condition. And that usually does improve, though, when they rest. Okay? And you all mentioned that there are some tests that they do to check for muscle weakness, right? Pretty much. And it was the tensilon test, right? And what was the other one? The endorphonium test? Okay, but you mentioned that, right? Okay. The thing I want you to know is that sometimes they give that tensilon and it can make things worse, all right? Right? Okay. So do y'all know what it's called if a person were to get too much medication? That's called a what? Cholinergic crisis. But if they don't have enough medication, it's the myasthenic crisis, right? Okay. What would be an antidote for the tensilon test or whatever if they got too much? Huh? Atropine. That is correct. All right. So, see, y'all remembered some of that stuff. All right. The medication that you mentioned, yes.
I just wanted to tack on the tensilon test that
Okay.
it can cause cardiac
Yes.
arrhythmias and cardiac arrest.
Yes, it
That
can.
is a consideration.
It sure can.
So you're gonna be monitoring it during the test?
Yeah, yeah. You would want to monitor, yeah, during the test. Absolutely. All right. Let me think of what else I want to say to you. All right. Thinking about the pyridostigmine bromide, which is the medication that they normally will give for these folks who have myasthenia gravis. They might also give corticosteroids, like we mentioned earlier. They give that for a lot of issues. And but with that medication that they normally give, the purpose of that medication is what? What is the purpose of the pyridostigmine bromide? Why do they give that?
Muscle strengthener.
That's right. To inhibit the breakdown of that acetylcholine, right? All right. So therefore, they will have better muscle ability to eat and do activities. All right. So you said that they gave that medication when?
It says you want it 45 minutes an hour after taking it, so you have to help with the swallowing and everything like that, chewing and stuff.
Okay, so they're gonna give this medication before they eat, all right? So in hope that they can swallow better and not aspirate, okay? All right, the one thing though, and I think the book speaks to it too, if I'm not mistaken, is that sometimes people require a little something to eat with that when they take it. If they don't have to have it, then they don't need to get it, okay, to eat with it in case they have a stomach upset from it. However, if they do, it would be just a small amount. It wouldn't be very much because we want those muscles to work well when they have their full meal, okay? All right, let's carry that activity just a little bit further. All right, one of the things that we see is that these people, because they don't have that muscles, they don't stay strong very long. All right, so when is the best time for these folks to be active? Okay, when would that normally be though?
In the morning, freshly.
Right after medications.
Okay, but just keep this in mind though, is it says that this muscle weakness is gonna get better if they rested, right? So when would be the best time for them to, first thing in the morning after they, or whenever they've slept, okay? And they have rested. Plus the fact, taking this medication is gonna help with all that, but if, and the reason this is important for y'all is because if you take care of patients, now let's just bring it home, okay? I mean, we're talking about all these things and, you know, it's either this way or that way, but realistically, if you're taking care of a patient with myasthenia gravis, okay, you know that these folks, after they've rested all night, they're going to be better able to do whatever you need them to do, right? So you just got to remember that kind of thing so that you'll want to schedule any kind of test or activities or anything they might need, you know, kind of early. But then again, if they're going to have anything done in the afternoon,
Let them take a
Then-
nap first.
huh?
Let them take a nap first.
They may need a rest, that's right. So, I mean, realistically, you just gotta understand how this process works so that you know when's the proper time to have them do stuff. All right, now, when you're taking care of someone who's just been diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, but they're gonna go home and these people are having some difficulty already with their swallowing, okay? And so, what is something that we're gonna teach this family?
Symptoms, I mean,
Small bites.
Small for you.
Okay? All right, so do they need to drink a lot of liquids? Okay. They need to have what, softer foods, things like
Maybe
that?
thickened liquids.
Yeah, not so much the liquid, right. And so you mentioned the fact CPR. Why is that?
In case they do aspirate.
That's right. Okay, so they may need to be taught CPR. They may need to have certain amounts of things at their bedside, some equipment at the bedside in case they were to need suctioning or whatever, okay? So there are things that we have to think about with these folks as they go home. And so, yeah, timing the activity and all of that's real important. Okay, I don't have anything else on my notes right here, but when we review tomorrow, I'll think if there's anything else I need to talk to you about. Anything y'all got on your notes that somebody else took for you? Just checking.
I was just gonna add, after medicating them, give them 45 minutes to 60 minutes before they eat, and then set them up for
Yeah.
30 to 60 minutes afterwards.
Okay,
you said
that's
that.
right, that's a good point. Yeah, just make sure they do sit up afterwards. You know, not only before to get ready for it, for their meal, but keep them up afterwards, you know, so that they don't just lay back down. Y'all know that, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right, guys, we're gonna talk about lupus, and that's gonna be all the time we got, okay, for today. Who has, lupus? All right.
Lupus is often called the great caused by an overproduction of autoantibodies that cause inflammation, which may stimulate the body to produce more of those antibodies. Signs and symptoms include joint pain, swelling, can affect any body system, chronic rash. Most prevalent is the butterfly rash across the face. Skin problems can be provoked by UV or sunlight, oral ulcers, pericarditis, renal damage, so you'll be checking the bun and creatinine, CNS changes such as depression, fever, fatigue, weight loss, arthritis, leukocytosis and leukopenia. Treatment or care, it'd be diagnosed with an H&P, ANA, hematuria, anemia. You would use corticosteroids to mediate the exaggerated immune response. They may be topical, oral, or IV if it's severe. Severe lupus would be treated with long-term immunosuppression therapy. We would teach about a multi-system involvement and importance of routine screenings. And then you would educate about eating healthy to decrease the risk for cardiovascular disease.
Okay. All right, so you've got written back there some of that, right? What was that? All right. I don't want to compete with Siri. She knows more than I do. You know what I'm saying? All right, so just ask her a question if y'all need to. Okay. All right. Let's talk about lupus for just a minute. You know, of course, that is an autoimmune disorder, right? All right, and y'all need to remember, though, there's two types of lupus, right? There's discoid, which we're not going to talk about so much because that just has to do with skin lesions, okay, in the skin, the discoid is. So we're not going to talk so much about that. We're going to be more interested in systemic, which is what we're talking about here, the systemic lupus erythematosus, or SLE. All right, so it is an autoimmune disorder, and what part of the body did you say that it kind of affects the most?
Kidneys.
The kidneys, all right. And the leading cause of death with lupus is? Okay, what's that? What's it called? Lupus nephritis. That's right. That's the leading cause of death from systemic lupus. Okay? So if you were thinking about assessment on a patient who has systemic lupus, y'all keep in mind though, it is systemic, so that means what?
Anywhere and everywhere.
It can go anywhere. That's right. Any system in the body can be affected. It just happens to be that lupus nephritis is the #1 leading cause. So right off the bat, you need to know what are you going to watch for, what are you going to assess as it relates to a problem with the kidneys.
Urine output. Bonding
Okay. Do y'all know what normal labs are? Okay. If you don't, you got to learn. Okay. You need to know what a normal BUN creatinine is. Okay. So that you know if that person is having a problem with their kidney function. All right, and you also mentioned about the urine output, right? So you definitely want to make sure that and you know what? That hadn't changed. How many milliliters per hour?
30.
It's supposed to be at least 30, right? For normal output. Okay, everybody's good with that. All right, what else might, you mentioned it. Okay, tell me what else you might see in the urine. Blood in the urine. What's that called? Hematuria. Okay, at least y'all know the right term on that one. Okay, so what else might you see in the urine?
Protein.
Protein. What does that protein mean?
Like the kidneys are flushing it out, huh?
Okay, let me tell y'all something about that. Just information, okay? Not that it matters, just but the thing is, if you see protein in the urine, it really shouldn't be there, okay? Whether it's coming from somebody that's had kidney damage from diabetes or somebody that's had kidney damage from lupus, it doesn't make any difference. Y'all see how concepts come in there? It don't matter. If it's protein in the urine, that means that there has been some damage to that kidney that has allowed that protein to leak out. Okay? So the little nephron things in there, little things that filter, has allowed that protein to seep out. So that's not a good thing. All right? So that means there's been some kidney damage somewhere. All right? All right, and like I say, you even might have, with this, you may have some fluid retention. Okay? All right, so that's why I wanted to go over that, because that is more specific to lupus nephritis. Okay, and that is the #1 killer in that. That does not mean that a person can't have issues with other body parts. Okay? All right. And so, moving right along, just to give y'all some good information about the lupus. Okay, a lot of times you'll see swelling in the joints and all as it results. And she talked about the butterfly rash, and there again, you know, that's a common thing that we see for lupus. These folks can have exacerbations or flare-ups, just like with other autoimmune type disorders that we'll be talking about. They get very tired, and one of the things I just will mention to you here, the most common cardiovascular issue as far as it being systemic is pericarditis. That's the #1 cardiovascular issue. Sometimes they see even with the, not just the discoid, but with the systemic, they'll see hair loss. They'll see alopecia as it relates to lupus. Let me think of what else. What will cause a person to have a flare-up or an exacerbation? Okay. All right. So we know automatically that we want to keep these people out of the sun, right? Okay. And what kind of things might they do to protect themselves from the sun?
Sunscreen. Good at big.
Okay. So y'all know that, right? Y'all know things that would protect a person from the sun, right?
Mhm.
Okay. As long as y'all know that, you're good to go with that one. Okay. Now, do y'all know what Raynaud's phenomenon is? Okay, and I know that folks with scleroderma will probably talk about that too. But Raynaud's phenomenon, you know, is where those blood vessels constrict. And what does it make them look like? White. Okay. All right. So sometimes these folks might have with lupus as well, and you'll see that in some of these autoimmune disorders, they kind of play with each other, you know, the symptoms. You'll kind of see some of the same things in some of the different autoimmune disorders. I'm trying to think. All right, one of the things we haven't talked a lot about, and I was going to wait till we got to rheumatoid arthritis and really talk about it, but I'm going to mention it here, is that we do a lot of these antibody type tests to check for inflammation on people who have a lot of these autoimmune type disorders, like the anti-nuclear antibody test, the pardon? ANA, okay. And the ERA, the erythrocyte SID rate, okay. I'll get it out in a minute. Okay, but we're going to talk about those more whenever we talk about the rheumatoid tomorrow. We don't have time today. But that is some tests that we will do for lupus. Let me think of something else. All right, do y'all know any meds that they might give? Did you mention meds?
I said steroids.
Okay.
Steroids.
All righty. All right. And there are some other meds I'm going to mention to you just for information. The hydrochloroquine, which is Plaquenil, you know, sometimes they will give that. And let's think what else they might do for that. If they, on the Plaquenil, I do wanna say this, if they happen to put them on Plaquenil, do y'all know what they might need to have on an annual basis?
Eye exams.
An eye exam, see, y'all know that, good. Alright, I just wanted to bring that out. Okay.
Is
and
it yearly or every 6 months?
Probably every year.
I think it's every 6 months.
Unless it's more often indicated for that individual,
Okay.
okay? I don't know that I know that it said a frequency, but,
It's usually every 6 months.
okay. Well, is it say 6 months? Okay, well, y'all know more than I do. Alright, I thought it was every year, but if it's every 6 months, that's fine. Main things to happen. Let's see if there's anything else. Alright, and y'all know, like if they were to give methotrexate, just like with steroids or whatever, y'all understand what happens with that situation, right? What are we gonna watch for? That's right. You're gonna look for all of these things that can lower the immune system. All right, if I think anything else, we'll talk about it tomorrow. So y'all go home, have a good evening, and we'll finish this up tomorrow.